I'm sorry if you can hear my fans. It's like 1,000,000 degrees in my room. I've put off filming this video for 2 days because of it. Get over it. Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Kirsten. I'm a disabled figure skater. You probably know me from TikTok. And I like to come on here to talk about Taylor Swift, pop culture. And today, books, apparently. Because, as you can probably tell from where I am sat, I own a few books. Today specifically, I want to talk about BookTok, the rise of BookTok in 2020, and how that has impacted the books that we consume. So pre-2020, of course, BookTok was a lot smaller than it is today. This is because during the pandemic, we were stuck at home. People wanted to find something to do. A lot of people took up reading, and I personally started reading in 2019, as just for fun, mid-2019. And then I kind of was like, I don't know what to do with my life now. I can't leave my house. I didn't have school. So I started reading, and I just kind of never stopped. And now I read, more than a normal amount. So obviously a lot of people have accredited this rise in book social media in 2020 as the reasoning that we have, lower quality books being released now. I don't think that's the case, and I want to discuss in detail why I don't think BookTok really is a bad thing. Social media obviously thrives on short form, quick, and engaging content. So because of this, more nuanced conversations tend not to happen, which means books with more nuanced plots, more nuanced themes, don't end up being talked about as much as, say, Icebreaker, which, no, I have not read. I do not plan on reading. I do, however, have it. My friend bought it for me as a joke. It's on the top shelf somewhere. I'm not going to read it. You cannot put me through that. The only thing I know about it is the only figure skating jump mentioned was a quad lutz. So because it's harder to have a more nuanced conversation, and promoting nuanced books is a lot harder within short form content, the videos that do push those books tend to get pushed to a different corner of BookTok than the vast majority of books, because I think a lot of people, when they think of BookTok, think about the romance section of BookTok and the romantasy section of BookTok, which is by far the largest section of BookTok and book social media in general. So one of the reasons it's so hard to have a nuanced conversation within short form content is because it's short form, a lot of the books tend to get narrowed down to superficial elements. We see people talking about, say, the cover of a book, a specific quote from a book rather than the entire book, or the basic plot summary. But because short form content has to be quick, snappy, easy to digest, we very rarely see a deep discussion within BookTok, within book social media, about themes, character development, and literary techniques. So this is because of something that a lot of people like to call the tropeification of books. So obviously if you're on social media, you've probably already heard of book tropes, but if you haven't, there are things like enemies to lovers, insta-love, love triangles. Now obviously I can see it from both perspectives. I can see it from the perspective of books are being taken and turned into the most superficial elements of that book. Because people are using book tropes, they're not creating dynamic characters, and they're not creating unique plot lines. But I can also see it from the other perspective of, if a book has a specific trope, I know I'm going to enjoy it, so I'd rather pick up a book that I already know I'm going to enjoy. So I've already obviously been over the negatives of book tropes, so I want to quickly discuss the positives. So of course they can be used as a building block tool for books. A lot of books, even pre-2020, did use tropes. They just weren't pushed as much. So a book would contain a trope, but it wouldn't be promoted using that specific trope. Tropes can also help set an expectation when going into a book. So if you know you don't like a specific thing in a book, and a book has that tagged as one of the tropes, you know you're probably not going to enjoy that book, and therefore you're not going to pick it up. So like I said before, the rise of BookTok has increased the amount of books being promoted with specific tropes. So I see a lot of videos that are enemies to lovers books, and it's just a load of books that are enemies tropes can lead to predictable plots, one-dimensional characters, because the authors often try and fit in as many tropes that they know are going to be popular, rather than creating a fully well-rounded book. Of course, using tropes to promote a book, I don't think there is anything wrong with that. I personally like that because I know what I'm getting into. I think a lot of authors since around 2020, instead of writing a book and then adding in, hey, this book has these tropes, instead they're taking tropes that they want to use that they know are going to be popular and writing a story around those tropes. Because books are easier to find via tropes, especially for younger audiences who wouldn't, say, have access to a library if they don't live near one, or even have access to something like Goodreads, because a lot of people just... I didn't know what Goodreads was until I was like 15. Because books are easier to find via tropes, especially for younger audiences, it becomes a lot more accessible. BookTok has made reading a more accessible hobby than it was before. Now, I personally like to say the reason I did so well on my English GCSE is because I read so much, and to be honest, I think it is, because even if I'm not sat here reading classics every day, one, I have read quite a few classics, but two, I'm being exposed to more and more literature every time I read a book. Even if it is just a crappy romance novel, it is still better than not reading at all. And the community on social media is a massive reason why I stuck with reading. I started watching BookTok videos obviously in 2019, and although I've never actually posted on BookTok, I comment on videos on BookTok constantly, and I have quite a few mutuals who are BookTok content creators. But obviously, where BookTok and book social media in general got bigger in 2020, it became easier and easier and easier to find book recommendations that were going to be good. So one of the key talking points from people who don't like BookTok and book social media is that overall it's lowering the quality of books. Icebreaker and A Court of Thorns and Roses are not trying to be the next classics. They are purely there for people to enjoy. I think the rise of BookTok has reminded people that books can be enjoyed. You can read for the sake of enjoyment. There is nothing wrong with that. Books that are being released now that are considered BookTok books or have been released that are, again, considered BookTok books, the majority of them are not trying to be the next classics. They're not trying to become classic books within the next 100 years. These books are purely being put out for people to enjoy. Not every single book a person reads has to be philosophical. Not every book someone reads has to have a deep, dark meaning to it. Yes, there are BookTok books that have important conversations, such as Yellowface. But at the same time, the majority of people on BookTok are there to enjoy reading. But of course there are a few BookTok books that may become classics in the future, such as The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is just one that, like, again, I read that like 2 years ago. I still think about it constantly. Or Yellowface, which again, I know I have mentioned that book quite a few times in this video. It's because I read it 2 days ago. To be perfectly honest, that is why that book keeps coming up, is because I read it 2 days ago, and again, it's all I can think about because it has an important topic. It is an important book to talk about. Okay, so something I really, really want to quickly talk about is the fact that social media is an algorithm. So the more you interact with content, even if it's leaving negative comments, the more likely you are to be promoted content like that again. If you comment on, say, a video of Icebreaker saying how horrible this book is, you don't recommend it to anyone, you still commented on that video, you still gave that video engagement. Because of that, you are then going to be pushed more videos with Icebreaker. I think the best way to curate your For You page is to first off go into the search bar and search a book that you read, you know you enjoyed, like videos, comment on videos about that book. And then when books you're not interested in come up on your For You page, like long press and press not interested and just move on with your day. Because over time you will then be shown more content that you want to be seen rather than just viewing BookTok as a negative thing. So of course BookTok is not actually ruining literature, it's simply showcasing a different side to reading that I think a lot of people don't kind of view as real reading. But let's also not forget that the majority of people, when they say BookTok, are referring to the romance and fantasy side of BookTok, because those two sections of BookTok by far are the largest. Let's not forget that BookTok is actually massive, and it does promote a wide variety of books, including books that have significant literary merit.